you innovative little marketing bees. You're tuned into episode 60 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello and welcome to the bite-sized section of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast and project, aptly named Bitesize Buzzword. I'm Ben Roberts, and in these bite-sized snackable episodes, I'm going to help you dive deeper into what a specific marketing buzzword actually means, help you decide whether it is or isn't important to your business, and if it is, how you can actually incorporate that buzzword into your marketing strategy. Now, this week we're going to look at the marketing buzzword machine learning, okay? And although this has been around for a little while, people are still not quite sure on how it works, what it is, and whether it's AI or not. So that's what we're going to try and clear up in this episode. So let's crack on with it. So, what is machine learning? Now, I've done a lot of research on this, try and find the right sort of definition and provide some real clarification around this. And this is the thing that This is the one that I've sort of stuck on, really, and it's machine learning is the science of getting computers to learn and act like humans do, and improve their learning over time in an autonomous fashion by feeding them data and information in the form of observation and real-world interactions. Now, I found that definition on a website called Tech Immersions. Now, I really liked the idea of this because it shows that actually it's a science, and two, it's trying to act like humans do, and it's all based upon sort of inputs and actual learning over time, allowing it to self-develop and sort of almost have that little bit of self-awareness, but we've got to feed it the data in order for it to make those decisions. Now, machine learning is generally grouped into three sort of grouped into either learning style or form and function. Now, this is something that maybe you don't need to necessarily understand for everyday use, but it's useful to have this overview of what machine learning is before we go into the marketing specifics. Now, all machine learning algorithms as well have what would say were three key traits. The first one is representation, and this is like the classifiers, the language, basically the way in which it communicates and interprets data. The second one is evaluation, and this is like the scoring function or the objectives. What is the outcome? What are they? How do they measure the success of this? Is that higher number better? Is that lower number better? Do we want a medium-sized number? All those sort of things. So what are the objectives? And the last one is optimization. That's sort of the search method that looks at sort of how we compile all that data together in terms of deciding which one is more important than the other, which one requires a slightly heavier weighting than others. And that is different to what people regard as AI. Now, this is where the real confusion comes in, so I wanted to start off with by defining a bit more about what machine learning is. And it's different to AI because some would argue that it's a subset of AI. But actually others would argue that it's like the here and now, and it's a real specific within AI, and it's almost its own tangible thing. And the way, from everything that I've seen around this topic and the way it's developing, it's almost like AI is the broader term, and it looks at actually using these machines and things to actually just create intelligence. So either doing smart tasks, so doing things that require a number of decisions to be made, but don't necessarily require a huge amount of learning element to it. Machine learning is a bit more specific, and it's about giving the ability for those machines to learn and not just carry out tasks that require a certain number of subsets and there is a certain number of outcomes based on there. It's actually the ability to have it a lot more autonomous. Now, in terms of someone who I think is amazing at learning and being able to tell you what machine learning is. And I am going to point you back to an episode, I think I did maybe episode 9 or something with Elizabeth Clark, and she really did an amazing job of really breaking down some practical applications in terms, especially in PPC, of how machine learning works and how her company are really using machine learning. So go back and check out that episode. Okay, so we've covered the basics of maybe what machine learning is. So it's now try to look at how you can actually use it. And one of the primary ways is what I literally just talked to you about. I mean, that wasn't a very good segue. But it's Google, PPC, advertising. I mean, again, Elizabeth Clark has been amazing. This was Google Shopping. And we also had on our episode the other day with Rob Watson talking about PPC, and he mentioned a similar thing with Google Shopping at the moment. And that is an incredible way of using machine learning to identify particular habits, trends, and accurately forecast what the results of these campaigns are going to be. So at the moment, you're basically purely trying to target on things like keywords and stuff. So actually, by even targeting things in a way of which people actually use Google in terms of how far into their shopping journey and all sorts of questions like that, all sorts of data can be used to help drive these machine learning algorithms forward. And they also allow for instantaneous feedback. It means more speed and more accuracy in terms of your KPIs, analytics, and reporting. This instantaneous feedback allows companies to be a bit more agile and allow you to make changes in a lot quicker fashion. And it's about that speed and accuracy. So it's not just about doing things quicker, it's about doing things better. With machine learning as well, it's also being used to accurately predict outcomes based on the type of content served, and i.e. the nature of the user. Now, looking at how that user interacts with a certain type of content, whether that's content they just enjoy reading, whether that's something that they stop on, come back to, does it sort of engage them? Are they stopping at the same sort of locations? Are you able to serve up other content to them? If you like that, instead of just going in and having an automatic thing that says, okay, you must like these, can you tailor it a bit more to make sure that they are more likely to get the content they are looking for? And on that same thread as well, we're looking at personalized copy and advertising as well. I've seen loads of this stuff popping up on LinkedIn, other social media platforms, where I think the examples I've seen at bus stops, where a bus stop has got like a camera in it and it's identified you and basically can show up an advert that's sort of really tailored towards you and your point of view, your what you're more receptive to, essentially. And the same thing, you can do that with copy and stuff. You can serve up more content and advertising that's either personalized or heavily geared towards that individual based upon the data that you know of them. And the final thing that I think is another huge benefit of machine learning, maybe it's not quite one that's highly used yet, but something that I think is going to come down the pipeline pretty damn quickly, and that's for SEO. And it's about looking at that heavy content focused, not keyword focused. So it's trying to make sure that we're really being heavily accurate on, heavily. I'm trying to think of the right word here. We're trying to make sure that we offer the most valuable possible content, and it's a great way of being able to push that agenda forward in terms of creating value and not actually writing for the search engine. The search engine will show up what your content is because you've written it for the customer. Now, this is something I'm not 100% sure how that's going to go, because there will always be a way of optimizing things for search engines. So we'll leave that one as a bit of this is something that could be potentially really exciting going forward. But to be honest, I'm not going to BS you. I don't know enough about it yet to be able to tell you in detail how that's going to work. But what I can tell you is there are a couple of number of errors that I've seen people made, and from what I've been looking at in terms of other errors that people make. And I've broken it down to 3 things that seem to be popping up the most. The first one is just the lack of testing. I know I've made a mistake recently in being talkative, where I didn't test things as thoroughly as I should have done before we released things. Now that is something that I will take on board, and I will human learn. I don't know if there's an equivalent term for human learning. Just learning, isn't it? Anyway, test again, and test again. That's the biggest thing with machine learning, is you have to make sure that the data is coming out correctly, and you do that by testing. Make sure there are no faults. It's not pulling in or inaccurately organizing data or inaccurately ranking data. You also need to consider the metrics carefully, as they affect the optimization part of machine learning that we talked about right at the start, and therefore affect the whole project. Those metrics will be given different weightings. Different weightings provide different outcomes. If you don't get the weightings right, you mess up the optimization part, which means you don't get the results you will require. And then obviously probably one of the most important things, and maybe the most obvious one, but something that is easily missed out, and it's just not using clean or accurate data just to start off with. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but if you've got like noisy, you've got sparse, you've got inaccurate data, all those inputs, basically the outcome you get is based upon the input of data from the start. If that input data is a bit naff, then the output data is going to be no better. You can't learn anything off naff data. Real simple. And the final thing I really want to sort of cover in today's episode was looking at the blockers to application. Now, there can be just too much data. I've looked at some of these outcomes that we've had from machine learning projects, and God almighty, it's complex to understand. And there are loads of grey areas as well. It doesn't just come out saying, do this. Okay? There's lots of grey areas. There's different weightings. Again, there's different percentages. There is no overriding thing that goes, yes, you 100% need to do it this way. There's a lot of grey areas, and it requires a little bit of intuition, because you're going to have to work out, is some people it's not going to work for, but most people it may work for. So be aware of that. There can be a huge amount of data. You might need a way of being able to refine that data in order to be able to make more accurate decisions. And the other sort of blocker to application really is it just sounds really complex and people don't understand it. It can be expensive, but there are also non-expensive alternatives. Again, it depends on what you want. Now, machine learning isn't out of reach for small business. It's really not out of reach, but it may require a very analytical mind, or it may require you outsourcing it. If you haven't got that highly accurate mind, you haven't got time to be able to either make sure that data is inputted, processed, and outputted accurately, then it's maybe really difficult for you to do at the moment. However, it isn't beyond your reach. Just because it's called machine learning and it sounds a bit complicated, it doesn't mean you cannot do it. Thank you very much for listening to this week's Bitesize Buzzword. I hope you found it useful, and if you are enjoying the show at the moment, please do leave a review on iTunes. I really, really do appreciate it. And I'll be back on Monday with another guest episode. Really excited for that one. So tune back on Monday for an exciting guest episode. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.